Welcome everybody to the first ever Kreative Klub session here at the Zimbabwe German Society. Woohoo! Apologies, our original speaker couldn't join us. However, we're in for a treat today because in the studio we have Taremeredzwa Takudzwa Chirewa, a vision, a masterpiece, and the current director of the Zimbabwe German Society. Let me go through her bio, which I have to read out because it's that impressive. She's a visual artist and cultural practitioner with a career spanning 10 years. She has focused her cultural career on developing and supporting other creative enterprises. She has a fine arts degree from the University of Wits in South Africa, and she's curated exhibitions and project managed within Zimbabwe, as well as sat on the Zimbabwe Pavilion Advisory Committee for the 2019 Venice Biennale. How do you say this?
Biennale.
Biennale, thank you. She is passionate about the role of women in the creative sector and continues to pave the way and create constructive dialogue for young female creatives through her content as a podcast host, blogger, and speaker. Can we just give a round of applause for Tare?
Wow.
So the way that we have set up these Kreative Klub sessions is that we have our speakers kind of sharing for about 15-20 minutes their experience of how their careers came about, what got them started, just to give our audience a glimpse into what it's taken to make you this powerhouse of a woman that you are. So I'm now going to formally hand it over to you, and you can just tell us your story in your own words.
Thank you. Wow. When you hear someone else saying kind of what you've done, it puts things into perspective a little bit. Hello, everybody. My name is Taremeredzwa Takudzwa, which both mean the same thing. I think when my parents decided to name me that, they didn't realize what they were doing, because then they've kind of spoken into who I am, right?
Explain what your names mean.
Oh, so Taremeredzwa Takudzwa means we've been uplifted, or we've been blessed, so to say. Not to brag, but
she's a blessing, folks. That's what she's trying to tell us.
No, I'm just trying to lighten it up, because this is supposed to be a simple conversation between friends, you know, Absolutely. Kind of sharing the journey and allowing people to kind of see how we can start off in one direction and turn in and go in the complete opposite. So I wasn't meant to sit here, so bear with me. This is kind of trying to get me to calm down and process and think about what it is that I'm going to share. And I think, though, everything kind of happens for a reason, because it's allowed us to kind of see where what I had in my head when we thought about this idea and this project can translate into something that's tangible. So here we are. I knew from the age of 5 that I wanted to be an artist. My parents took me to Peter Birch School of Art. At school, I did art. In high school, that was kind of my main focus. That I even had a teacher, after we wrote our O-levels, kind of come up to me when we were now being put into our classes for lower 6 and upper 6. And he then says to me, "Oh, you passed. Interesting. I thought we were going to put you at the travel and tourism side, you know, to kind of do hospitality and things like that." But I say all that because I was very clear about what it is that I wanted to do. I wanted to be an artist, a practicing artist, so that was kind of where my mind was focused. When people asked me, the answer would come just like that. But being Zimbabwean, being Manika, being black, everyone would kind of say, like, you know. So when I went to university to study fine art, I think my parents had to be very firm in how they responded to people, because at some point my dad kind of felt the pressure and suggested I do architecture instead, because at least I'm guaranteed some money out of that, and I could then still draw and paint and do what I loved on the side, but, be a bit more technical about it. But of course I said no. So when I applied to university, I applied to one university and I put in an application for fine arts. And I had to put a second choice. So I put law because I was always told you like to argue, so you'd be a good lawyer. So I was like, seeing I have to, let me put law. I got the place for fine arts. However, there were so many issues with communication at the time. Things weren't as smooth as they are now. So the email that was supposed to have been sent or the letter didn't get to us. And it so happened that we had gone to South Africa on holiday, and my parents were like, let's go to the school and find out what's going on with your stuff. And when we got there, then they told me, oh, you actually have an interview in a few days. So if that's not God, I don't know. I went for the interview pretty much ill-prepared. But luckily for me, I had been drawing and painting on the trip. So I had some work that I could show for the interview as a portfolio. Wow. I got into the school, but I was not going to make it in time for orientation. So I missed probably 2 or 3 weeks of orientation, which was very... I don't know what the word would be. I was about to say uncanny, but I don't think that's the right word. But it was very uncomfortable because...
Discombobulating.
Very good. Discombobulating. Because everybody kind of knew each other. They had made cliques and friendships. So it was a very lonely journey for the first month of uni. And then also being an art student came with its own challenges. I mean, you're surrounded by people that have been taught a different level of art because they grew up in a country where art is valued and considered as a contributor to the GDP. And I grew up in a country where art was just something you did as an extra subject. So we didn't do art history. We didn't get into, the intricacies of art like they do in South Africa. So it was a lot of catch up that I had to do. And I think now in retrospect, I think we really need to do a lot more in what we teach, especially for our more creative students. I digress. Back to the story. Having studied fine arts, I got pregnant in my 3rd year, which at the time was not part of the plan, but I think now, life would be very different had I not had my son. I mentioned this because I did an article where I had to mention the 3 building blocks that made me who I am. And the first one was my grandmother, and she contributed to the powerhouse, as Rimbai says, that I am by...
She's the OG powerhouse.
She is the OG, like the matriarch. Mm-hmm. She would ask you how you are, and if you answered fine, she would kind of poke you and probe you until you responded properly. So that made me very self-aware. And in that self-awareness then came being able to say no when I needed to. Though at some point I forgot about that. We'll get to that. The second building block was my uncle, because I got depressed in the first 2 years of art school. It was a lot. It was very challenging. And I kind of started asking myself why I was doing what I was doing, and in the same breath, I was asking myself, if I'm not good at this, the only thing that I know how to do, then what's next? What am I going to do? Like, who am I? What am I doing on this earth? So that was like a really downward spiral. And I remember going to my uncle's house, and he said to me, I was sitting in the house, and he goes, this house is full of art books, and I've never seen you at one moment touch or read a book on art. How are you an art student if you're not looking, and if you're not sleeping, eating, and drinking and breathing art? Like everything has, like you're not feeding your soul with what it is that you're doing. How is it that you call yourself an artist then? And it was at that moment that made me kind of reevaluate and start thinking about adjusting and changing and, falling back in love with the craft. And then that's when I got pregnant. So that also then kind of brought everything full circle and made me reconsider everything I'd been questioning and to kind of also then have a focus and a direction, because I kid you not, had I not gotten pregnant, I would be very hippie-ish and, typical thing that people would say about art students. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that was not meant for me. Fast forward to coming back home, having people say to me, "Are you mad? Why are you going back home?" And the one thing that kept ringing in my head was, I need to go back home, because if I stayed here, I wouldn't achieve as much as I want to, because I'm at the bottom of the food chain. Those of you that have either gone to school in South Africa or lived there, as a foreigner, as a Zimbabwean, you're literally right at the bottom of the barrel. So you have your tiers, and it's like anywhere. You have your tiers, and usually the foreigners are right down there. So if it was a job call, they'll pick everybody else before they look at you. And I wanted to be a big fish in a small pond. I got it right. So I came back home, and I came to the National Gallery here in Zimbabwe because one of my lecturers was like, "I've got a friend there. He can help you get acquainted with what's happening in Zim, in the fine art scene in Zimbabwe, and kind of point you in the right direction." That didn't go as planned, because I was told I still want to shine, and if I kind of show you the ropes, then you're going to take away the spotlight from me, and that's not what I want. So I thought, at the time, it didn't click that that's what I was being told, right? I thought, oh, okay, this guy's just not interested in sharing, or trying to show me the ropes. Anyway, let me go home. So I'm from Mutare, which borders with Mozambique. So I went back home, and I decided I will volunteer at the National Gallery there in Mutare, because they needed people, because it was a small team, and I thought, I've got time, I don't want to sit at home, let me volunteer. I volunteered for 9 months as a curator when I was in Mutare, and it was a really interesting experience. I got to learn just how to work within the art space. I got to learn about the Zimbabwean art space based on that. I mean, I would get on a bus at 5 a.m. from Mutare, come to Harare, go for a studio visit. By 3 o'clock, I'm on a bus again going back home. Because I felt it was important to make time to visit artists in their space and to get to know their work and what it is that they do. And having done that, one of the artists actually then came up to me a while later and said, sister, and you're the only one that's actually been into my space and taken the time to come and see the work before you decide, that this is what you want to put up. Which I thought was really sad, because how is it that you can put an entire exhibition together without understanding who it is that you're trying to exhibit? There's so much more to the process of putting up a show than just putting the work on the walls. Anyway, I volunteered for 9 months. I left when I decided I wanted to practice full-time, and I moved to Harare because I had a commission work with USAID. While I was there, then the Harare Gallery called and asked me to come in and do public relations, because their public relations person was going on maternity leave and they needed someone for 3 months. And I thought, you can write. Let's try it. Let's go. I did that. I got there, and then she was like, well, this is the job on the table. Do you want it? And I barely had time to process. And I just said, you know what? Yes, I'll take it. So I was at the gallery for 1 year and 3 months. And I'm glad I took it, because I had the opportunity to go to Venice, which is something that I don't think I would have been able to do having not been within the gallery system. So the Venice Biennale is one of the biggest exhibitions in the world, because most countries in the world exhibit at the Biennale, and it happens every 2 years. So I had an opportunity to be part of that, to help manage the pavilion at the time, as well as then stay within the pavilion for 6 months thereafter. And while I was working on that, I met the partner to my predecessor, who then said, oh, I think you'd be great for this job at the Zimbabwe German Society. they're looking for a cultural manager. And I thought, okay, let's see. I put in the application while I was starting to write it out, and then I was told, oh no, it's not the cultural manager position they're looking for anymore. They're looking for the deputy director. And then I thought, hey, ooh, me now, 22-year-old. How is that going to work? Was I 22, 23? Like, how is that going to work? A whole deputy director, I don't think I'm qualified for this. But then he, being my mentor at the time, was like, I think you can do it. There's no harm in trying. You've got the passion and the heart for it. Go for it. Try it out. So I wrote my motivational letter. I put in my application, and I thought, it's not going to happen. Let's see. And then I got called for the interview. I was like, it's just an interview. What's going to happen after that? And then I got in because there were some things on the list that I had. There were boxes I didn't tick. So I really didn't think I would get that far. But I suppose what I had to share made them see something in me that, allowed me to get the job. So I got the job. And the idea of the role was that it was supposed to build up the director, because the director then was going to leave in 6 months. So the idea was to kind of work with this person to get them up to speed so that they can then eventually, ideally, take over the post of director. So 6 months down the line, I've learned German. I was juggling, learning German first out of the job, learning German, going back to the gallery to serve my time. And then when I finished that, it was coming to work here, learn German in the morning, work the rest of the day, and make sure I caught up what I was meant to do in the morning within that day. And then also being thrown into this diplomatic world, because there were events, there were things that I had to do, I had to network, and I'm an introvert. So this whole, I'm an ambivert. This whole having to be thrown in a room with people I don't know, having to speak in a certain way because everybody's looking at you and judging you based on your age, your race, your sexuality. It was just a lot. So it was me having to learn how to be vocal and out there, as well as, stay prim and proper and show them that, yes, I may be young, but I know what I'm doing. I'm here for a reason. The imposter syndrome was really just, it was heavy at the time, where you question every single thing the moment you walk into a room. I put in the application for the director post, and as I was writing it, I sat there, and my now husband, then boyfriend, I was sitting there going, I don't know why I'm doing this. I hate this so much. I don't want to be in charge. I don't want to do this. But I still sent in the application. And when the interview came, he was like, see, I know, you say you don't want to do it, but deep in your heart, that's what you want to do. The interview came, and it was a stiff, like there were like some really dope people on that panel. But again, what I had to say and, kind of the vision I had for this space spoke volumes, and it made a big difference for everybody. And I got the job. The first 5 years of this job, being 25 when I was made director, to I lost teeth. My blood pressure, I was diagnosed with hypertension. And I really didn't know how to say no to a number of things because of the biases around my gender, my race, my age. It was just a lot of unspoken expectations that then impacted how I did things. And, being a perfectionist just doesn't help. Yeah. Because then it just made everything worse. But I had to learn after the hypertension diagnosis, being diagnosed with hypertension at 30, or no, I was not 30, at 28.
Oh, God.
I had to really reevaluate a lot of things in my life and start to prioritize and say what's important and what really isn't, and not because people will talk regardless. I mean, I had someone come in and say, to me. As a German community, we just don't think you're good enough for this post. You don't listen to anybody. You're mean. And these are all people that have never spoken to me or never, kind of put across their request and had me say no. So things like that. I was battling that, being young, being a mother and wife, and it was a lot. I will stop there.
We're getting invested then. Then what?
What happens?
Okay, I mean, you've painted a very vivid picture of your experiences. You've overcome so much. But before I get into my own line of questioning, I'd like to open up to the audience. Are there any questions on the floor?
My first question is, you spoke about how you had a very difficult time the first 2 years of school, studying fine art, right? Could you explain more what that experience was outside of having to play catch up with everybody else instead, in terms of what you studied before? What made it so hard for you to be in South Africa at that time?
Okay. So it was a number of things. It was the peak of xenophobia then. It was the fact that we're being made to do things that I had never done before. So it heightened when we had to do pinhole photography. I had to create a pinhole camera. We were doing animation and film. So I'm not a very patient person. And like I said before, I'm a perfectionist. So animation and doing scoreboards and whatnot for film was just so stressful because you have to draw each movement. So if it's a movement like that, I have to draw that, right? And it was a lot. And then I had to use Photoshop and things like that. And I'm a painter and I'm a drawer. So it was just being put in the deep end on things I just could not manage. So with the photography, I love photography, but the pinhole camera, it was the whole exposure, understanding the science and behind the exposure, and then the mixing of the chemicals to develop the photograph. It was a lot. It was just so much. So I think that, coupled with the fear of just life and getting to school, just all kind of compounded into this one big thing, and I shut down. I literally I wasn't doing what I enjoyed, and I was scared for my life, and, to the point where I would because I look the way I do, a lot of people assumed I was Xhosa. So I would get into a taxi, and people would start speaking to me. And at some point, like, I can do the formalities. We can do the hi, dumela, rekai, what. I can do that. But it's now when you start going deep. Hey, it was very stressful, to say the least. Yeah.
I have a question. Just around. Sorry, are there any questions in the audience? Please come forward.
So you spoke about knowing that you wanted to be an artist from like 5. So I want to know how you transitioned from art to administrative.
That's a good question. So how did I transition from art to administration? Having worked at the gallery in the PR department, I got an experience of the admin side. And then being the assistant to the project manager for the Venice Biennale then opened up something else entirely. And I'm one of those people that cannot sit and ignore when something's not done right. So, like, I itch. I have to literally hold myself to not do something, if I'm in a space where I shouldn't be reacting. So that is what I think has allowed me to shift between being the artist and the administrator. And I think the combination of being able to do both has allowed me over the last few years to do what it is that I do and to work with the people that I've worked with, because it's like I have I've got the cheat codes, right? Because I'm an artist, and creating programming and working within the space on an administration level then allows me to merge the two together, because there are times where they're seen as separate silos when they shouldn't be, because they kind of work hand in hand. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Okay. I have my question just around the imposter syndrome that you spoke about.
Yeah.
Most people don't apply for jobs just because they've discounted themselves. What would your advice be to anyone out there either underestimating their abilities or just not taking a chance for an opportunity?
You know what? I think I learned over the years that the worst that you can get is a no, Sha. So if you've come across something and you think you can do it, and then you get to the list of requirements, and there's the must have a master's degree, or there's the 10 years experience section. We live in a world now where some of these things don't matter as much anymore. So the fact that you can do something and you've got the heart and passion for it usually circumvents everything else, because you can have someone that ticks all the boxes but doesn't have the passion and the drive to do the work. And nowadays, I think people are looking more for the person who's got the heart and the passion to get the thing done, because in that passion, you will find the right skills that you need to accomplish the task. So I say go for it. I mean, the worst you can get is a no, Sha. Like, and are you going to die? Like, my parents would always say, when I asked for something and they said no, they were like, Wafa, are you going to die? Like, no, you're alive. You're still breathing. So you move on to the next thing.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening.
So, my question is going to come from the point that you say you were directed at 25. You say that you faced some adversities from the community that was already there. Them saying that you're not fit for the job, you're not the right person for the job. So my question being is, how did you go over that? Like, you're already facing people you don't know, who you haven't talked to, but you're also able to do your job wonderfully. So how were you able to do that?
So the day that I was, for lack of a better word, inaugurated, the National Arts Council director at the time came up to me and says, Sha, you're the first Zimbabwean here. Don't embarrass us.
Don't embarrass us. Wow.
I'm very competitive. And I'm a perfectionist. And then if you combine all those things, it's like, well, there's no room for failure. I think literally every morning was, I cannot fumble. There are too many eyes on me. We need to do this right. Not very healthy, I must say, because I didn't give myself grace to just be. Now, I've settled. I now give myself grace. I say no to things that don't make sense and that don't work. I don't try and please people anymore. And I also understand that there will be people that are just, whether I do something right or not, they're going to have something to say. So I've allowed myself that grace. But that statement alone from him was my driver to kind of ignore. There are times where I I mean, like when I had that conversation with the guy telling me about the German community, I almost teared up. Well, I teared up, but I didn't let the tears fall down. I kind of like bit my tongue and just said, oh, okay, you know. And then afterwards, I was kind of like ranting. I think we need to put a punching box in the office, just, you know, for those moments. Just say, you know, like to let out all the tension and the stress and just breathe, you know. But yeah, it hasn't been easy, especially being young and everyone else is older than you. I was the youngest for the longest time. Now I have people younger than me, so that helps.
I think I have a question just around, what do you think is next?
See, that's the problem of accomplishing things at a young age. Like, what comes next? I do know that I want to. I don't think I can work for anybody anymore. I don't take instructions very well. I do want to do. I want to consult more. I want to practice more. So I want to paint and draw some more. I want to. I mean, I've resuscitated a fashion label with my mother. So there's that. Work with my mom, trying to get her to accomplish what I feel could have been so much bigger had she had the right toolkits to help her at the time. And I guess basically everything that I want to do is kind of like professional services. I want to help people make their ideas bigger and better and kind of see how they can accomplish what it is that they want and make it look better. So curating shows, just giving people that extra advice around how something could be presented in a completely different manner, whether they have a budget or not. You know, because the last 8 years have been a whirlwind of events. I think I've been to so many things that now when I go to an event, I have to really just have a chat with myself and say, you're not in charge. Ignore the mistakes and the little things and just enjoy. But I think there's some things that can be done better. So I want to help with that.
It's very exciting. When the time comes, we'll be ready to attend.
But you're going to say you'll be ready to hire me.
And potential, yes, your potential clients too. And help our visions and creative visionaries come to light.
Yeah.
I think that you've given us a lot of food for thought. And I think that our viewers online can definitely appreciate that challenges might be there, but they can be overcome. Things that look like full stops are sometimes commas.
That is true.
And even if you peak early, there's still a lot of road left for you to accomplish. So thank you for being with us today, Tare. And to those online, I hope you continue catching up with all the other speakers we'll be featuring on the Creative Club sessions. Thank you.
Thank you.